also important to note, I've spoken to a couple of clients who have purchased watches that I esteem very highly as very accurate. I know they've got chronometer grade ETA movements in them. They should be performing to chronometer spec. But here's the thing. Some people will wear automatic watches with movements like 2824 and 2892, and they will not really give it enough juice. If you're a very sedentary office worker, and I've had this issue because, yeah, I do videos of other people's watches, but for the most part, my watches don't get too much action in the office. And your watch will just be perpetually underwound. It'll get enough energy to keep going, but not enough to achieve isochronism and a good rate. So if you're that person, you're losing time and you're in an office or sedentary, or some part of your job requires you to remove the watch for hours at a time, give it 20 or 30 winds each night. I guarantee you that'll fix the slow rate.
Either do that at night, in the morning. You know, you pick your watch up before you put it on. It's not a big deal to just give it a few winds. You're not gonna, you can't overwind unless you have a manual wind. Any automatic watch, you can't overwind. Screw it back down, put the watch on, and the automatic's going to maintain all the power you put into it that way, especially if like what Tim said, you're not as active. We've had that problem many times with Rolex owners. So, you know, somebody buys their Rolex new in the 70s, you know, we're servicing that watch in 2000, and they've aged quite a bit. They're not as active as they were when they bought that watch, and we have to, you know, delicately explain to them, I'm sorry, sir, but you're not as active as you were 30 years ago. And you know, it's a delicate conversation, but you know, we explain to them, you know, wind your watch in the morning, put it on, you're going to be very happy with it.
Yeah, exactly. If you're wearing that Rolex Sea Dweller and, you know, your life arc has taken you from Comex to, you know, Cracker Barrel, the bottom line is that, yeah, you might have to wind your automatic watch.
Exactly.
Now, I want to address two questions from Alexi, but also from our user Sweet Tomato. Questions about refinishing. The first is from Alexi, and it's, Mike, is there an easy way to remove micro scratches from a gold watch? I know there's a compounding material
there's different things you can use. One of the things that we use, especially on screw heads, on gold, is just a felt burnisher. It's a felt stick, and we'll use that and just polish the screw heads as we're putting them in right before we snug them down. We'll just, you know, drag the felt over them. That'll take out a lot of scratches, you know, without a compound, without anything else on them. The problem you start getting into compounds is you end up with residues.
Yes.
You know, so if you put a compound on there, you're going to get a residue, you know, coming off of it. So there's really nothing I can actually recommend as far as a final gold polish. The other thing you can use is if you use, like I said, my best thing again would probably be just a felt. You know, just you could use a cloth, you know, to give the watches a nice rub down, but that's not going to remove any of the scratches.
So felt and an even, would you say, linear or circular motion?
And circular, you don't want to go linear because you're going to drag the scratch then.
Okay.
The thing about gold's very easy to refinish because it's soft. It's very easy to scratch because it's soft. So we can refinish a gold watch. It's going to look stunning. The first time it's worn, you can tell the watch has been worn. So they call it character.
And then the other question we have regarding refinishing is from Sweet Tomato, and he's like, Tim, Mike, opinions on repolishing a watch if it's done well, or keep the scratches for the character. Let's preface this with one statement. Every time you refinish, you remove metal.
Yep, remove metal. So
there is a limited number of refinishes in your case before replacement.
It's not just the removal of the metal, it's you lose the edges. We can look at the Panerai here, and Panerai is known for having the very, very sharp edges. And the one thing you have to watch, if you don't refinish it correctly, or you have someone that does not know how to refinish, is you're going to lose these sharp edges right here. And that's what we really have to guard against. These points, everything else, you want to keep the integrity of the case. If you're a professional refinisher and they know what they're doing, and they know how to do watches, not just jewelry, they're going to keep those sharp edges. The problem is we see a lot of people, before they try to sell their watch, they take it to, you know, a jeweler to have them polish the watch. First of all, they don't take the movement out of it, which is really bad for it because of vibration and heat. And then it just comes in with just the sharp edges gone. And then we have to rebuild those sharp edges. Reform the sharp edges, but again, we're removing material. Every time we polish that watch, we're removing material.
As Mike says, the bigger problem with refinishing isn't losing metal. It's not like you're going to put your watch on the scale and it's going to be half an ounce lighter. It's losing definition. And a lot of times, especially on older Rolex that have the hand-finished bevels, even after the bevels have lost their shine because they were polished originally, If they're still clearly rounded but scuffed, a lot of people will say, you know what, it's only factory once.
Yeah.
I'm going to sustain it rather than trying to restore it.
We see and sell a lot of Omega Speedmasters here. And I look at anything that, if it's 15 years old, stuff that 10 years ago we were refinishing, we don't refinish anymore. We'll clean it, we'll put a service kit in, replace pushers, replace the crown, replace the crystal, everything with genuine Omega, but we're not going to refinish that watch unless someone buys the watch and specifically says, I want it refinished. If they want it to look
Yes.
new, we'll make it look new. But for the most part, anything that's over 20 years old, we don't want to refinish them anymore. We want to keep the character in the watches.
Exactly. So ultimately it's up to you, but I'll just offer one concrete example from a manufacturer that's worked with me in the past, and it's Bulgari. And they say, regardless of material, there should never be more than 8 refinishings within the life of a case. And I would say by the time you're on 6, 7, 8, you're looking at a very diminished character.
But what happens? You start losing depth in the lugs. And not all the lugs are as heavy as a Panerai lug, but you start losing that. You can look at go back to the Patek. These lugs are very thin compared to new watches. So the more we refinish this watch, it's going to lose it. This watch has actually not been refinished by the owner. He did not want it refinished because he wanted to keep the integrity of the watch.
Which I think is an excellent move on a watch like that, especially since that one's unlikely to be pounding the surf.
Exactly.